Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in, and in this video we're going to talk about a very important subject, which is how to deal, make connection, or communicate with your professors, instructors, or teachers. The reason I decided to create this video goes back to a very simple factor that I not only have been discriminated, but in many situations I was right and I didn't know how to communicate it with the professor or the teacher, even though I knew the laws will back me up, I have evidence, and etc., but I just didn't simply know how to communicate with my professor in order to be the most effective way or effective path, and basically get what is right in that situation. And I feel like this concept very much goes to further than educational system, because pretty much every system that we have to go through has been set up similar to our schools, where there's this dictatorship and you always have bosses or like senior partners or name partners where they ask you for a favor and you have to satisfy them, and in certain scenarios something happens because it's life, and then they treat you horribly even though if it's unlawful. So how you should deal with them, or how you should take care of this process in order to be at the better position so these things don't happen to you, really goes back to how you make a connection with your teacher, because school is where you practice this stuff. So when you go to the workspace, you kind of know these games, know these moves, and just make them better when you're there. All right. What you need to do in order to win this battle, win this a little competition that you have going on, in order to be successful with the outcome. Now the outcome can be you passing the class, can be you wanting to ace the class, and can be you basically getting a recommendation letter or whatever it is out of it, is to create a positive perspective in the instructor's head. And that starts with very firm and steady steps that you have to take towards the course, and during that time period that you're taking that course or that class. And one of which is, and you probably have heard it a lot, you have to make a good first impression when the school starts. And what I did, which worked wonderfully towards me, is that I basically from the very first class would approach the instructor after the class ends and everybody's leaving, because the class ends sooner than the usual time and they can go home and chill or like catch up with friends or what class you're taking. But what I did is that I always stayed until the class got empty, and then went and talked to the professor and be like, hi. Especially when I was in community college, it was only 2 or 3 years that I was here, and poli-sci being courses with lots of reading and lots of writing, I'll be like, hi, my name is Kalamarad Muratpur. I'm an immigrant. I literally moved here a couple years ago, and I know when it comes to English, I'm not at the same level as someone who was born here, but I want to be very successful in your class and want to take any steps and every steps that I have to in order to get that A, or have that very good outcome that basically you're aiming for your students to have. So from the very first class, I will take the time and I would initiate what is my purpose in this class, and what are my goals and what I'm trying to achieve. And I have to be honest here, there was one case out of all of that it really backfired, and the professor was like, oh, if you're an immigrant and you think you have problems with English, you should drop my class immediately, because the prerequisite is that at least you have taken the English 1, not knowing that I was on English 3. So I have already taken not only English 1, English 2, and English 3 with a 4.0 GPA. So usually it goes your way, and it will put that light star next to your name when you have this sort of communication from the very beginning, because they know your intention, they know you're serious, and they know you're after that A, and it usually goes well. Like all the time I have received these amazing feedbacks and amazing reactions. But again, there are those times that you have to be prepared when it's gonna backfire. So that will be always my first step. And then if I want to say 1.5 will be, or the next step in this category will be me having questions, which I again will wait until the class ends and then approach the teacher and talk about it. Like for example, if we would have talked about the war, which is a very common subject in political science, I will be like, I had this question, and after the class ends, I will like, hi, Professor X. We talked about wars and like, you know, all the side effects, sanctions, and etc. when it comes to it. But how about the example like the Iran-Iraq war and then the situation that happened to Iraq? You know, when the Iran-Iraq war was taking place, the U.S. was backing the Iraq, but then all of a sudden in 2003, based on the claims that they have weapons of mass destruction, they decided to basically tear that country up and destroy them. So where do we put them? So, you know, these types of questions that really shows you understood the topic. You are stepping out of the box by asking these questions, by challenging the topic. It just gives, again, that positive perspective or that positive intention from you to the teacher. Which, again, we are on this path to make this positive perspective from you as in students and them. So when the stuff happens that shouldn't happen, either they have a bad day and have a negative perspective towards something that you have done. For example, that paper you have written, they're reading it and they just had a fight with their wife or something like that. Something horrible happened. They had an accident. They read that name and be like, that's Kodamurat. He's a good student. He has shown me through the semester with this, that his intentions are clear, he knows where he's going, and he's always been on top of his stuff. So again, that will be just another step. These questions that I essentially will bring up after class, and it will be like once every 2 weeks or once every week that I had that one question that I will wait until the class ends and have this one-on-one conversation. And then 1.75 in this category of A will be going to office hours, especially the first and second office hours, because these are usually the office hours that the majority of students miss. You know, it's the beginning of the semester, they don't need the help, the classes are still shaky, they don't know the schedule, so they don't attend these office hours. But I would go to every single one of them, and even though we didn't talk about that much in the class, I'll be like, you know, just talk about common questions or common things in life. Like, for example, I will tell them, hey, I want to become a lawyer, and this is why I want to do it. So what are your perspectives about that as someone who is in their 60s, as someone who has more experience? What would you say to your son? You know, make the questions more personalized. And then that would even give me more advantage because, again, I'm just showing them that, look, this is the path I'm trying to make. I'm here in your poli-sci class because it relates to my goal and I'm a caring student. I want to do my best. Alright, so that would be the 3 factors in the first category that I would do. Second category will be communication. I would always communicate very well. Like when I would send emails, first of all, I would do everything prior. Like I wouldn't be like one of those students that would let something happen and then email the professor and be like, hey, sorry I couldn't attend the class, but this happened. No. I was always prior or beforehand, I would send out my email, and in my email, I was very detailed. And not to the point that it will hurt me, or in future they can use those information that I gave them against me if another situation comes up and I'm giving them more information, but to the point that it gives them this honest feeling from the student that he is telling the truth, that he is really in trouble. Like, for example, there were certain times that, again, with my dad being disabled and I being his caregiver, there were times that I couldn't attend class, you know, because he was in hospital or they didn't know what was going on with him. So I had to be right next to him, and it will consequently be in the same exact day that I had the test or something like that. I will communicate everything. I will even take a picture of my paycheck where it has my worker ID and all of this stuff, and I would attach it to the email that I will send it to them. So communication was very important for me, and I found out that again, it would just go with this creating this positive perspective towards me from the teacher as a student, and it was very helpful. And I also saw a negative side of it with those who didn't communicate very well and how they had to pay the price. So be very precise and honest with your communication, but also be effective with the information that you're providing them with. All right, now the third category is basically taking this one step back when things happen and don't be quick into responding. This is very important because when things really happen horribly, when you are discriminated, when you are or you have done something right, but they go hard on you and try to prove you that you're wrong or you haven't done the right thing or you're this horrible person for whatever reason. You know, they didn't have a good day, they really hate you, they hate your face, they hate your race, and anything could be behind it. I've learned that instead of immediately going at them and be like, no, but you told us, here's the email, you know, or no, you've said it in the exam or in the guidance that you provided us, I would just take a step back and be quiet, you know, not fully take a step back, but like if, first of all, I will take, I will make sure I'm keeping my cool, but then I wouldn't really go deep as a lawyer would go to like destroy my opponent, because I know this is a zero-sum game, and if I want to take that game with them, I'm the only loser, right? So I will be very cool when it comes to my communication, and I've learned that from Jordan Peterson when he's just like under fire with all these different TV cast members. And don't say much in the scene. Let it cool down. Let me go home. Let me go to the library. Let the class end. Think about the scenario again. What will happen is that it also gives them the time to think about the scenario. And there have been multiple cases where the teacher, now they have to be a good teacher, right? But the teacher has reached back out to me, apologized, and said, hey, I was wrong. You did the right thing, actually. But there are a lot of cases that this thing doesn't happen. And what you want to do is that, okay, if you don't hear back anything from them and you pulled back, now you have time to put together your statement in a way that won't hurt you, but also tries to go after what's right. And even if then, because you've already tried, right, in the class, very minimally, they never emailed you back. They never mentioned anything that they're sorry or they have done something wrong. So you're already at disadvantage. And then you will aim at it again. But this time, you know how to do it. Because you took that step back, you thought about it, and you're approaching this topic again. And sometimes, I would say in my art class, art, not a philosophy, not a poli-sci, not something so important, but like an art class that I was taking for fun, and it was about to destroy my GPA, I even got to this point that I was like, I knew I was right? But because I had those times to take back and think about all the stuff that is happening, think about the teacher's reaction, I saw that the teacher is not budging, you know, for whatever reason, even if it's their ego. I was like, you know what? I would love to give it another try if you would please give me the chance to basically redo this project and then return it to you based on all the comments that you have provided me with. if you please would just give me a chance. And then, it was because I was in a position that after first try of going lightly at him, seeing not him budging, the professor, and then giving it a second try, don't really see anything difference. I was like, okay, I have to play this dummy, right, in order to get to what I want, which was the grade, right? So that's the advantages that this stepping back and eating your words at that moment that you feel attacked, at that moment that you think you're right, at that moment that you think they're wrong, and they should be doing the right thing. You just take a step back, you let it sink in. They potentially, in certain cases, which happened to me, they might email you back, apologize, and owe you one for the rest of the semester. Or what will happen is that within the first try, you can shape your argument in a way that will work it out. And if you see they don't budge at all due to any circumstances or any beliefs that they have, you'll be like, you know what? Let's work this out. I will do as you tell me. And you know what? We're talking about a project, a homework, that something that is, although it's important when it comes to the grade perspective, but it's not as intensified as you being discriminated, as you being falsely accused of something, cheating, hitting someone, stealing, and etc., etc. And those situations, everything can change a lot. Just ask me how I know. Which I would definitely, because I've worked with a lot of disabled students and we've been into these different situations, not only giving them advice, not only hearing different perspectives, not only working with student body organizations, but certainly being in that moment where I was discriminated, where I was wrongfully putting those falsy labels. I know a thing or two to talk about what you should do when you come or you get yourself involved in that situation. I shouldn't say get yourself involved. You get involved in that situation because the majority of the time it's not even your fault or you don't want to be there. Which we can talk about it in the next videos. Of course, it's not a legal advice, or it won't be a legal advice, but I think it's also important to know what you should do in those circumstances, even though you have the law by yourself. And also, how little all these different organizations, body organizations, or the institutional wise, that are there to act as, balancing this power will do for you as a student in order to justify the whole situation. That's why I call it a dictatorship. That's why I'm really hoping to push you guys towards creating that positive mindset, which was the very first category we talked about with going to office hours, having that communication perfectly set up, and eating your word or go back on your thoughts and let it roll a little bit and take the best out of it. Now, as a bonus, if you stay towards the end of this video, I'm going to talk about one more last tip, which will kind of give you that advantage and compared to other students in order to make a better relationship with your teachers, and it's asking them about extracurriculars activities that is related to your topic, because again, that shows that you really care about this topic and you want to take it even a step further. Right, I remember my history teacher was part of this huge project, and I was like, look, I really want to go to one of the top universities, four-year universities, and I want a good recommendation letter from not only professors like you, but like workplaces that I put in the effort, I put in everything that I basically learned from these classes, and I think your organization will be one of the best to have on my resume would it be possible for you to introduce me to those who I can work for free? Or if you have any programs available, such as internships, externships, or anything that I can get involved with. And they would love it. They will go above and beyond to get you hired, and at least that was the case. That was the situation in my case. And in addition, there were like certain cases that the teacher wasn't really anyone, or they were retired, right? They didn't have a second job, or were involved in these higher organizations at all. And what they did is that they invited me to these different talks, talks about the economy, talks about how the US was before 1868 or after. And it was overall a perfect combination for me to often get closer again with the teacher, because I had to sit next to them. I get to see their wives, I get to see their family coming out, making connections with them. In addition, would have this extra opportunity to write a summary or a report about the event that they told me to attend. And not only I was getting education, not only I was basically repairing or getting myself closer to the professor, but I also got a chance to do an extra credit, which put me ahead of other students. So these are my 4 tips, 3.5, 3 with a bonus if you stayed towards the end of the video, and I hope that helps you, or if you're watching it, to educate your son who is in high school. That will be helpful. Thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next video.